Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the secret chemical history of Nazi Germany. And believe me, it's a story that might just change the way you think about World War II.
You see, the Nazis built this whole identity on a myth of purity, right? They were these warriors against moral decay, and right at the center of it all, Adolf Hitler. He was portrayed as this icon of clean living, teetotal, vegetarian, a guy who wouldn't even touch coffee. That was the powerful image they sold to the German people.
But what if I told you that the reality behind that squeaky clean image was something else entirely? A staggering story of state-sanctioned drug use on an industrial scale. And it went from the lowest soldier all the way to the very top.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture here. The entire German war machine, the Blitzkrieg itself, was literally powered by a so-called wonder drug.
So before the war, this drug, Pervitin, was a total sensation. You could just buy it over the counter. Secretaries, factory workers, pretty much everyone was using it to get through the day. They even put it in chocolates. The ads promised it would wipe out fatigue and just fill you with confidence. It was basically National Socialism in a pill.
You know the Nazi slogan, Germany Awake? Well, this drug seemed to make that literal. And the military, they caught on fast. A guy named Dr. Otto Ranke ran some tests and concluded that meth was the perfect drug for soldiers. And why? Simple. In high doses, it just nuked your fear and, most importantly, your need to sleep.
Get this. For the invasion of France in 1940 alone, the German Army and Air Force ordered 35 million tablets of Pervitin. 35 million! This wasn't some back alley experiment. This was official military policy. They were handing these pills out to soldiers like they were vitamins.
And the strategy? Oh, it was brutally effective. The Allies just assumed no army could get through the tough Ardennes terrain without stopping to rest at night. But fueled by Pervitin, the German tank divisions, they never stopped. They drove for 3 days and 3 nights straight, catching everyone completely by surprise. The conclusion is pretty simple when you think about it. No drugs, no Blitzkrieg.
Okay, so now let's zoom in. We've seen the macro story of an army on meth. Now for the micro story of just one man, Patient A. This is the secret history of Hitler's own drug dependency, a personal collapse that kind of mirrored his entire nation's.
So, contrary to all that propaganda, Hitler was a really unwell man. His whole life he suffered from these crippling stomach cramps, chronic digestive problems, and, well, let's just say severe uncontrollable flatulence. He was obsessed with his health and just terrified of ever looking weak.
And then, in 1936, he meets Dr. Theodor Morell. Now, Morell was this fashionable but honestly pretty shady physician. He was known among Berlin's elite for his vitamin injections. He promises Hitler a cure, and when Hitler's symptoms seem to get a little better, boom, Morell becomes his most trusted confidant, his personal drug supplier. And in his secret diaries, Hitler is known only as Patient A.
Morell's treatments were, well, they were beyond just unorthodox. They were flat-out dangerous. He gave Hitler these pills for his flatulence that had strychnine in them. Yeah, a key part of rat poison. He prescribed something called Mutaflor, which was a probiotic made from the fecal extracts of healthy soldiers. And he started this routine of daily injections with concoctions made from rotting pig's liver and bull testosterone. Just wild stuff.
So you can really see Hitler's drug use escalate in 3 clear phases. At first, it's just daily vitamin shots. But then, as the war starts turning against Germany around 1941, Morell ramps it up to hormones, steroids, and the first opiates, all just to keep the Führer going. By 1943, Hitler isn't just a patient anymore. He's a full-blown addict, depending on powerful narcotics just to get through his day. And this is where those 2 stories, the micro and the macro, they just collide. By the late stages of the war, you have the military and its supreme commander both spiraling down into this deep, shared, and ultimately disastrous addiction.
The key drug in Hitler's final years was something called Eukodal. Now you can think of it as a forerunner to oxycodone. It's a really powerful synthetic opiate that, unlike heroin, also gives you this intense feeling of euphoria. So in July 1943, Hitler is panicking about a meeting with Mussolini who's threatening to pull Italy out of the war. Morell gives him his first shot of Eukodal.
The effect was immediate. Hitler, just high on opiates, goes from a nervous wreck to this raging powerhouse. He totally dominates the meeting, just ranting at Mussolini for 3 hours straight. Mussolini never even got a chance to speak, and Italy stayed in the war. That night, a very grateful Hitler told his doctor,
The success of today is totally yours.
Okay, so fast forward to after the failed assassination attempt in 1944. A new doctor is brought in to treat Hitler's damaged eardrums, and his prescription? Pure cocaine. So for months, Hitler is on a daily regimen of Eucadol and cocaine, a super dangerous combination we now call a speedball, which just yanks you back and forth between euphoria and depression.
And this is incredible. At the exact same time, the military is developing its own super drug cocktail called DIX. And its ingredients? They're a chilling reflection of the Führer's own habits: oxycodone, cocaine, and methamphetamine. It was literally Hitler's personal cocktail in pill form, designed to create these tireless, fearless super soldiers for the last desperate battles of the war. And the drug was tested on concentration camp prisoners who were forced to march for hours until they just collapsed and died.
But here's the thing about an empire built on chemicals. It's incredibly fragile. As Allied bombs started falling and the supply lines broke, the whole system and all its users began to crash hard.
So in late 1944, a series of Allied air raids, they destroy the Merck pharmaceutical plants in Germany. This was an absolute catastrophe for the regime's addicts, but especially for patient A. The supply of Eucadol and all those other potent drugs was just suddenly gone.
And in his final months, hiding out in the Berlin bunker, Hitler's health completely collapses. Eyewitnesses describe a man who was just a hunched-over, shaking wreck. His hands trembled so violently, he actually had to hide them behind his back.
Now, for years, historians have debated what caused this collapse. They often pointed to something like Parkinson's disease, but the timing tells a very different story. His sudden, violent deterioration lines up perfectly with the moment the Allied bombing cut off his drug supply. The tremors, the delirium, the failing health, all classic signs of a man suffering the absolute agony of severe opiate and cocaine withdrawal.
And it really seems like it was only in his final, desperate days that reality finally broke through the delusion. Just a week before he killed himself, Hitler flew into this massive rage. He screamed at Morell, accusing him of turning him into an addict, and literally threw him out of the bunker for good.
Okay, let's be absolutely clear about something. Understanding Hitler's chemical dependency is not an excuse. It does nothing to diminish his monstrous guilt. What it is, though, is a crucial lens for looking at history and for understanding the powerful delusion that gripped not just a man, but an entire nation. And that leaves us with one final, chilling question. British intelligence eventually called off a plan to assassinate Hitler because they figured his irrational leadership was actually helping the Allies win. So, if his drug-fueled euphoria kept him from seeing reality, did his addiction actually prolong the war, costing millions more lives? It's a really provocative thought that shows you how something as small as a chemical can literally bend the arc of history.